Hello and welcome. Today we're going to dive into one of the most fascinating and, frankly, complex figures in world spirituality, Krishna. The name Krishna, it just resonates with millions. From children's stories to really profound philosophical texts, he's this huge, central figure in the Vaishnavism tradition of Hinduism, a character of myth, of legend, and of really deep devotion. We tend to picture him as this playful child or maybe a divine lover. And those images are powerful for sure, but they might just be scratching the surface. There's a much deeper, more multifaceted person there. So in this explainer, we're going to peel back some of those layers. We'll move from the myths we all know and love to the historical debates and some really surprising details that make up the whole picture. This is probably the image that first pops into your head, right? The mischievous kid, obsessed with butter, just completely adored by everyone in the village of Vrindavan. It's a picture that's just full of joy and divine playfulness. And then there's this version, the mature, wise guide, the one who steers the chariot for the warrior Arjuna, and whose conversation on the battlefield of Kurukshetra becomes the Bhagavad Gita, one of the most sacred scriptures in all of Hinduism.
But here's a real curveball. What if I told you that during that exact battle, some scriptural timelines suggest Krishna was nearly 90 years old? Yeah, 90. That detail, it completely reframes how we see him as a warrior and a strategist. All of a sudden, the power on that battlefield isn't about youthful energy. It's about this incredibly profound, time-tested wisdom. So let's explore how all these different pieces of his story actually fit together.
Okay, first things first, let's start with what's familiar, the stories of his youth. This is really the foundation of Krishna's popular identity, a whole narrative that's just packed with miraculous feats and enchanting tales. And the stories they're incredible. As a tiny infant, he's said to have defeated the demoness Putana. As a young boy, he tamed this giant venomous serpent named Kalia in the Yamuna River. And maybe the most famous one of all, he supposedly lifted an entire hill, Govardhan Hill, on his little finger, just to shelter his village from the wrath of a very angry god. But what's really fascinating is that these myths aren't just stuck in ancient books. They are living, breathing traditions that are actively celebrated in modern India today. Just look at the festival of Dahi Handi. It's this amazing event that reenacts Krishna's childhood habit of getting his friends together to form human pyramids so they could steal pots of butter. It's such a perfect example of how a mythological story can transform into this vibrant, athletic, and totally communal celebration. And his own origin story is just as dramatic. He was born in a prison cell. His parents, Devaki and Vasudeva, were locked up by his tyrannical uncle, King Kamsa. Why? Because of a prophecy that their 8th son would be the one to finally bring him down. It's this incredible story of hope being born in the absolute darkest of places. So let's look at how this divine child, born under these terrible circumstances, grows into a figure of immense complexity. We're talking about a king, a political strategist, and, for his followers, the supreme god himself. The scriptures actually split his life into these really distinct phases. You've got the Vrindavana Leela, which is all about his childhood play, where he's this enchanting, beloved kid. Then that's contrasted with the Dwarka Leela, where he becomes a mature statesman and a king ruling over the magnificent city of Dwarka. It's a really clear evolution from a simple pastoral life to one of major royal responsibility. And here's a really crucial point in the theology of Vaishnavism, and it's captured in this verse from a major Hindu text, the Srimad Bhagavata. It basically says that while other incarnations are parts of the divine, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead himself. This just elevates him to a completely unique position. This concept is known as a Purna Avatara, or a complete incarnation. The idea is that the entire, limitless energy of the divine is totally concentrated in this one personality. It's kind of like the full power of the sun being focused through a single perfect lens. And this is the question that takes us from theology into history. For all the powerful myths and all the profound philosophy, scholars and devotees have been debating this for a long, long time. Was Krishna a real historical figure? So let's explore the evidence. This is where belief, ancient texts, archaeology, and some pretty intense scholarly debate all come crashing together. And we're going to look at this neutrally, presenting the arguments from every side. So on one hand, those who believe he was a historical figure point to some really intriguing clues. Marine archaeologists have actually found a submerged city off the coast of modern Dwarka that they think matches the descriptions in the scriptures.
We have ancient artifacts like the Heliodorus pillar and the Mathura inscription that show people were worshipping Krishna centuries before the Common Era. But, on the other hand, skeptics argue that there are no direct inscriptions from his actual lifetime. They also raise a good point. Should epics like the Mahabharata be read as history or as foundational religious myths?
The timeline here is really key to understanding this. Using planetarium software, some researchers, like the physicist Dr. Narhari Achar, have actually dated the Mahabharata war by tracking astronomical events described in the text. They place Krishna's birth around 3112 BCE. Way later, we get the hard archaeological evidence, the Heliodorus pillar from 200 BCE, the Mathura inscription from the 1st century BCE, and then, much more recently in the late 20th century, Dr. S.R. Rao's underwater expeditions brought the legendary city of Dwarka right back into the conversation. And you know, this evidence has been pretty persuasive for a lot of people. The noted historian R.C. Majumdar even stated that a general consensus has formed among scholars in favor of Krishna's historicity, seeing him as a real Kshatriya warrior and leader.
So, to sum it all up, you basically have two main perspectives. The case for history relies on this convergence of evidence from archaeology, astronomy, and literary texts all pointing in the same direction. The case for myth, though, emphasizes that epics are primarily works of theology and literature, not literal history books. And you know what? The debate is still very much alive.
But here's the thing. Whether he was a figure of history or a figure of faith, Krishna's legacy is absolutely undeniable. His impact goes way beyond the boundaries of this debate, weaving together culture, philosophy, and devotion. Ultimately, the reality of Krishna is a composite one. He's the divine child from all the folklore, he's the sublime teacher of the Gita, he is a living, breathing presence in cultural festivals like Dahi Handi, and he's a compelling puzzle for historians and archaeologists. He really does exist in all these dimensions at the same time. And that brings us to a final, thought-provoking question. Is reality only defined by historical proof, or does a figure become real through their lasting impact on millions and millions of lives, on art, on philosophy, on culture, for thousands of years? What truly makes a figure real? That's something to think about. Thank you for joining me.